They say silence speaks louder than words. But when my secretary stopped showing up to work the day after I confronted my wife about her affair, that silence became deafening. My name's Andrew. I run a private wealth management firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. On paper, my life looked spotless. A brick colonial in Myers Park, country club weekends, dinner parties with couples who all drove European cars and faked more than just their smiles. My wife, Taylor, had the charm of a politician and the face of a Southern pageant queen. All gloss, grace, and perfect timing. We'd been married 7 years. No kids, just a golden retriever named Chance, who probably understood me better than most people did. But the last few months had been different. Taylor had grown distant. Her texts became shorter. She started volunteering more in the evenings, first with a nonprofit, then with some startup board. I asked questions. She had answers. Clean, quick, polished answers. And then there was Megan, my secretary. 28, sharp as hell, loyal to a fault. She started working for me 3 years ago and never let me down, not once. Megan was the type who remembered everyone's coffee order, booked flights before I even asked, and somehow managed to keep the office from burning down during 2 audit cycles and a data breach scare. But something had shifted in her too. She'd become quieter, less eye contact, less of her usual deadpan humor. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She'd been dealing with a sick parent. Maybe she was just distracted. Then, one night, I stayed late to prep for a client call with Tokyo. The office was dark except for my desk lamp. Megan had already gone home, or so I thought, until I heard her voice in the hallway. She was on the phone, quiet, urgent. I didn't mean to listen, but I did. No, he has no idea. I haven't told him anything. I promised I wouldn't. But this isn't sitting right. A pause. No, I won't cover for her again. If he finds out on his own, that's on her. Click. I sat frozen in my chair. I didn't want to believe what I just heard, but deep down, I knew exactly who she meant. Taylor. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I watched my wife make coffee in her silk robe, humming like she hadn't just detonated a grenade in our marriage. I said nothing, neither did she. I went to work early, called Megan into my office. "Anything you want to tell me?" I asked. She looked up from her notepad. No flicker of surprise, no panic. "No," she said calmly. "Everything's in your calendar. You've got Taylor's Gala Thursday, lunch with Oppenheim Friday, and your brother called again." "Megan," I locked eyes with her. "You know, don't you?" She hesitated, the first real crack I'd seen in 3 years. "I do," she whispered. "But it wasn't my place." My chest felt hollow. "How long?" She shook her head slowly. "A while. I tried to ignore it, thought it would blow over." "Who?" She didn't answer. She just got up, left my office, and by noon, she was gone. No text, no email, nothing. Her desk was cleared, her phone shut off. Gone. That was 2 weeks ago, and I haven't heard from her since. By day 3, her absence stopped being an inconvenience and started feeling like a bad dream. No resignation letter, no job transfer request, nothing in her email history except for a neatly scheduled out-of-office reply. "I'll be unavailable indefinitely. Please direct all correspondence to Andrew Calloway." That's me. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. Texts unread. Her apartment lease listed an emergency contact, her brother Ryan, but when I called, he said she'd needed a break and was staying somewhere quiet. He wouldn't say where. "Is she okay?" I asked. A pause, then, "She will be." Click. It didn't make sense. Megan wasn't the type to vanish mid-quarter, especially not during a major account transition. And despite what she knew about Taylor, she'd been steady, contained. Not the kind of person who unraveled, but her disappearance. It got under my skin. I started digging. At first, it was simple curiosity, then obsession. I went through her work files, her calendar, even her call logs on the company phone. Nothing suspicious. Except one thing. 3 weeks before she vanished, she'd made a personal note in her project tracker, a task she didn't share with anyone. Dinner with T, confirm location. T. Taylor. That realization hit me like a body blow. I confronted my wife that night. We were in the kitchen. She was chopping basil for pasta like everything was fine. I stood there, watching her. "When's the last time you saw Megan?" I asked. Her knife froze midair, then resumed chopping, steady as ever. "Megan? At the holiday dinner, maybe." "Why?" I didn't blink. "She disappeared." Taylor shrugged. "Maybe she found another job." She had dinner with you, Taylor. Now she looked up, calm, controlled. Excuse me? Don't lie. She put it in her planner. Dinner with T. That was you. A beat of silence. Then she smirked. Not everything revolves around your office, Andrew. Maybe she had dinner with someone else whose name starts with T. Her tone was light, dismissive, but her eyes, they flinched. That's when I noticed her hands shaking slightly as she set the knife down. I let it go, for the moment. But something shifted in me that night. That old blind trust I'd had in her, even after the cracks began to show, finally broke. The next morning, I drove to Megan's apartment. The landlord let me in after I claimed I needed to retrieve company property. The place was spotless. Dishes washed, bed made, clothes gone. Nothing left except a single manila folder on the counter. Inside, printed photos, grainy zoomed-in shots of Taylor at a restaurant with a man I didn't recognize. Different nights, different outfits, same guy, always sitting too close. There was also a flash drive. When I got home, I plugged it into my laptop, expecting financials or client data. Instead, there were videos, 2 short clips, both shot from what looked like a phone propped inside a parked car. In one, Taylor's car pulled into the lot of a small hotel on the south side of town. In the other, she got out, looked around, and walked inside, arm in arm with the same man from the photos. Timestamp: 2 months ago. I sat there in my office, staring at the screen, feeling something colder than anger. Megan had known. She'd known everything, and she'd tried to tell me, in her own way. But why leave the folder behind? Why disappear after the confrontation? That night, Taylor noticed I was quiet during dinner. "You're acting strange," she said. "Am I?" I replied. "Andrew, if this is about your secretary—" I cut her off. "Don't." She blinked. "Don't what?" "Don't act like you didn't know she's gone." She stared at me, face unreadable. Then she said softly, "Maybe she finally realized what kind of man you are." And in that moment, I couldn't tell if she was deflecting or warning me. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in and told the team I was dealing with a family emergency, which wasn't a lie. The family in question was my marriage, and the emergency was whatever the hell was going on beneath the surface of my wife's pristine, practiced smile. I took a drive, no destination, just me, my thoughts, and the weight of everything Megan hadn't said. Somewhere near Monroe, I pulled into a diner. I sat at the counter, ordered black coffee I barely touched, and stared at the folder of photos again. I'd looked at them a dozen times already, but I kept hoping some new detail would jump out. A license plate, a name tag, anything. But nothing. That night, I decided to do what I should have done months ago. I followed Taylor. She left the house just after 7 p.m., dressed sharp but casual, hair pinned back, long coat, boots she usually reserved for client events. She didn't say where she was going, just called out, "Don't wait up." I waited exactly 30 seconds, then got in my car and tailed her down Providence Road. She didn't take the highway. She went east, toward Matthews, then pulled into a quiet lot behind a strip of office spaces, the kind with tinted glass, one shared hallway, and no visible signage. I parked across the street. She met him again. Same man from the photos. Tall, shaved head, wore a pressed button-down like he was trying to blend in with normal life, but couldn't quite fake it. They didn't go inside. They talked, argued, maybe. I couldn't hear anything, just watched their body language from behind my windshield. She touched his chest at one point. He pulled her hand off, then leaned in, said something, and left. Taylor stood there alone for another minute, then got in her car and drove off. I didn't follow her. I followed him. It was reckless. I know that now, but at the time, all I could think was that this guy had something to do with Megan. He had to. Why else would she keep photos of him? Why else disappear right after confirming she knew about Taylor's affair? He drove 20 minutes south, out past Waxhaw, to a residential area. Nothing fancy, just neat brick homes with short driveways and big yards. I watched from a distance as he pulled into one, went inside. I took a picture of his license plate, Googled it when I got home. The name registered? Thomas Albridge. He wasn't some random fling. He was a licensed private investigator. That changed everything. I ran a search through the firm's expense accounts going back 6 months. Nothing under Taylor's name, obviously, but there were a few payments made to Albridge Consulting, likely a cover. One invoice was labeled External Asset Audit, another, Discreet Surveillance. Taylor had hired him. Not to investigate me, though. That much was obvious now. She'd hired him to dig into Megan. But why? What the hell did my secretary have to do with this twisted web? That night, I sat in the living room, folder in my lap, flash drive beside me, watching Taylor across the room as she scrolled through her phone, glass of wine in hand. I asked her, "Who's Thomas?" She didn't look up. "Who?" "Thomas Albridge. You met him tonight." Now she did look up. Slowly, calmly. "You've been following me?" "You hired a PI to follow Megan. Why?" She set her wine down, adjusted the sleeve on her blouse. No panic, no denial. "She was threatening me," she said, like she was commenting on the weather. "What are you talking about?" "She said if I didn't tell you about the affair, she would." "You could have told me yourself." She smiled, tired. "I wanted to, but not like that. And not because she forced my hand." I stared at her. "So you silenced her?" "No," she said. "I warned her." "Warned her about what?" Taylor leaned forward, elbows on her knees, like we were in a therapy session. "You think this is all about you, Andrew? That Megan disappeared because of some moral crisis over your broken heart?" She shook her head. She was digging into things that had nothing to do with you. "Like what?" "I don't know, but whatever it was, she got scared." That was the first time I'd ever heard fear in my wife's voice. Not guilt, not manipulation, actual bone-deep fear. After that conversation, everything changed. I started watching everything, my home, my wife, even the office. The sense that someone was always one step ahead of me had sunk into my skin. And the more I dug into Megan's disappearance, the more I felt like I was pulling at the wrong thread in a much larger, tightly wound knot. The next morning, I called Megan's brother again. This time, I didn't ask where she was. I asked something different. "Did Megan ever tell you what she was afraid of?" There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear the background hum of a TV, maybe a blender. "She didn't talk much about work," he said finally. "But right before she left, she mailed me a copy of her hard drive, said if anything ever happened to her, I should send it to the cops." "Did you open it?" "No, she told me not to, said it wasn't safe." "Can I see it?" "No," he said. "But if you think this has something to do with your wife, Andrew, then maybe you should ask yourself what Megan found that scared her more than you." Then he hung up. That night, I sat with Taylor at dinner again. She was back to her old self, smiling, pouring wine, talking about a trip to Savannah she wanted to take. I watched her closely, wondering how many parts of her were masks I'd never noticed before. "Why did you really hire the PI?" I asked. She gave me a long look, then set her fork down. "Megan wasn't just your secretary, Andrew. She was involved in something. She was watching people, gathering things, not just on me, on others." "What others?" She hesitated. "Some of the people you work with." The words hit like a gut punch. "You're saying she was spying on my clients." "Not yours exactly," she said, "but people in your circles, people she met through you." It clicked. All those years of working late, organizing events, overhearing conversations, Megan had seen everything. She knew when people talked too openly over drinks, when they left financials out on desks, when they bragged about things they shouldn't. She'd been in the background so long she became invisible, and invisible people can get away with seeing everything. "What was she planning to do with it?" I asked. Taylor shrugged. "Don't know, but she was careful, smart, and that's what made her dangerous." "Dangerous to who?" Now she smiled, not cold, not cruel, just resigned. "To the kind of people who don't file lawsuits, the kind of people who make problems disappear quietly." I stared at her. "You're telling me she got too close to something, and now she's, what, gone into hiding?" "I'm telling you," Taylor said slowly, "that Megan knew too much and trusted the wrong people." "Did she trust you?" "For a while," she said, "but I think she was trying to play both sides." "And me?" Taylor tilted her head. "You were a means to an end, Andrew. Don't take it personally. She probably cared about you, but that didn't mean she wasn't using you too." I stood up, chest pounding. "I need to find her." Taylor didn't try to stop me. She just looked at me like she already knew what would happen next. "You won't," she said. "Why not?" She leaned back in her chair and sipped her wine. "Because she doesn't want to be found." That was a year ago. Megan never came back. No sightings, no credit card activity, no phone pings, nothing. The firm moved on. I hired a new assistant. My marriage, it exists in name only. Taylor and I coexist like two strangers wearing wedding rings neither of us remembers choosing. And me? I check my inbox every morning, hoping for one thing. A message from an anonymous sender, a Dropbox link, a burner email, something. But there's nothing. Just the ghost of someone who knew everything and vanished before the truth could catch up to her.